What is up, everyone? We love to learn our lessons live around here. I'll work on the volume for intro videos. There's no control on that once we're live. So we'll work on that for next time. But welcome. This is Talking with Kids about Cybersecurity. And all of us here are cybersecurity practitioners in some level. And before we get started, I just want to sort of preface, this is not us preaching. This is not us telling you what to do. We're really just sharing some of what we've ran into, some of what we've done with our own kids as we start to teach them what cybersecurity is and how it applies to them at their different various age levels. So with us today, as always, I brought Matt along. He's also got children. He's a cybersecurity practitioner. We've also got Eric Bowles, first time appearing on stream with us. Welcome, Eric. He's also got children, also has played around in cyber. And as always, we've got Ryan Cromar with us here to drop some hot take questions and share some of his thoughts as well. So in general, we're just going to cover some basics, some things Matt's run into. He's got some great stories, some things that we share with our own kids to really educate them and make them smarter cyber citizens, right?
Yeah.
So I'll kind of start, and I've got 4 kids. I've got a lot of kids, all boys. My oldest is 11, and my youngest is 2, and he's obviously not on the internet at all. But they have different phases of internet. And Matt and Eric, if you want to give a little bit of background on your situations.
Mine are actually 14 months apart, and they're both boys, and they're both in the almost adults and responsible for their own actions, and nor myself any longer. And so, I actually am a cybersecurity practitioner, as well as a hacker by definition. And my kids have actually both been compromised in some way, form, or fashion. And I think it's kind of one of those things where I have some really good conversation to have around this. But thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Eric.
Yeah, so
and good to see you too, Sandy McGrath. Sorry, I just saw it in the chat.
That's right. I would call myself in the past security practitioner. Route switch security, firewall, stuff like that, all those things. Mainly infrastructure type stuff, not code security. But I've kind of evolved beyond that now, but I've got 2 kids, one daughter that's now 21, married and out of the house, and then one boy who's 16 and staring at a internship with Google. He's a very, very savvy software developer, understands things at the OS level and programmatic level very, very well. And it's real interesting because a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy represent vastly different problems when it comes to data security, how they use the internet, what they do, what they look for, and what drives them to do what they do. A lot of it has similarities, but it's primarily, they're 2 different problems you have to solve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Since we're an atypical, since we're an atypical group and we're all fairly technical, we're all practitioners, I think it'd be remiss not to have Mr. Cromar here to round out our group who's not technical and who actually I think presents a little bit of the core problem of trying to talk about kids with cybersecurity. It's not a parental thing like eating or how to wipe your butt, right? These aren't simple things that translate well, right? And so I think there's some challenges where, trying to talk to people about cybersecurity indicates you might know about it. I think that's actually a little bit remiss today. So, Cromar, not to put you down, I didn't mean to be diminutive.
No, hey, we all know I'm the lowest on the technical totem here, but been a part of this group for a while now, and something that comes to mind when we talk about this cybersecurity stuff is I think of myself as one of these kids, right? I may not have kids of my own, but I play a lot in the same playgrounds of Steam and Epic Games and BattleNet and Roblox and Minecraft. All these things are
Wait, are
where
you one
kids
of those
are
like
hanging out.
secretly famous Roblox YouTubers? Is that what you're trying to tell us here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making money doing these streams with you guys here.
Oh, come on now.
But really, I kind of think I represent this almost like the user here, right? Like I'm in a lot of the same ecosystems that these people are playing in. And you see a lot of people at PAX 8, right? I have a lot of folks at PAX 8 that I game with as well that are in these same ecosystems. So, man, it looks like Matt's got a friend on LinkedIn here. That's
I do. Yeah. We won't be posting those comments, but we do have a few of them here for sure. I digress. And then we got Jonathan with his burn, probably referencing my earlier statement on Cromar. But we talk about Steam, we talk about this, and let's just take it back to the core of this of what we're trying to talk about today is like, how do we have conversations with our kids about cybersecurity? Right, about risk, and I think having the banner you have on Halo and the gaming aspect, hits very home to me. Right now, I'll tell a really quick story. My son, who is the younger of the two, has been compromised twice in as many months. Right, and what happened was his Steam account had two-factor authentication because he follows a cybersecurity father who forces him to do those things, right? Which I think that's kind of what we should talk to our kids about.
Right.
But and they went through the entire elaborate process of reaching out to him, telling him that their support chat, they're here to work on a recent ban that he's had, right? Because nobody's ever gotten banned for saying anything ugly online as a kid, I'm sure. And he thought that's exactly what it was, and they were able to just socially engineer him into turning off two-factor. And they got him all the way to the point where he came to me and goes, "Dad, I need a credit card number." "Why do you need a credit card number?" "Well, because they need to make a purchase to prove that I'm me on here." And all they were really doing was following all the steps that Steam has to permanently lock out that account. Once they had a purchase, and they didn't want to pay for it, they wanted him to have to pay for it. But once they had a purchase, they could use that proof of purchase to always take back over the account, which is what we ultimately did, right? We had a proof of purchase from something in the past. We used that to take back the account from the threat actors. But how many kids go through the rest of that kill chain, right, and lose the account and everything you've paid for and all the games and all the accessories and all the stuff they've earned? Everything's just gone, and they can no longer access it on their machine. You have to buy it again or fight through whatever process might exist for Epic Games or Steam or whoever that may be. But the point I want to make is that I talked to my son after that. We debriefed. We talked about what he could have done different, where those opportunities for success would have come for him, what to recognize in the future. And then just this weekend, had another one where he got conned out of his Discord account, and they were using it to proliferate the attack to anybody else in his Discord chain, including myself. Went all the way to scanning the QR code they tricked him into, and that QR code signed them into Discord, right? And so, like, if we think the threats aren't there, they're there. Now, I don't know how much more of that I brought on my son by being a public figure in the cybersecurity space and how much of that may have already existed. But those are kind of my stories. And I feel like I'm a fairly good educator to my children around cybersecurity. Cromar, I know you brought up gaming. That's why it triggered me for that one.
No, you know what? It made me think of, it's like somebody with a pro athlete parent, right? They expect that person to be amazing at that sport as well.
Right.
And in reality, oftentimes they don't live up to those standards. And I mean, granted, there's tons of scenarios where you have this lineage of pro athletes, but oftentimes it can be super difficult. It's like having a musician parent as well, right? Like you're expected to live up to these expectations that are just unattainable, and it's brutal. And as a kid, you're like, man, I just want to play PlayStation. I don't want to deal with MFA and all this crap my dad deals with. I just want to go shoot people stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the key difference, right? Is kids, and sometimes I miss being a kid because you get to be blissfully ignorant to a lot, right? And there was a time where the impact of that wasn't what it is today. The bigger worries were not necessarily getting your Steam account phished, right? And now today, I've been exposed to the crime side of some of the stuff that goes down, and it's absolutely terrifying, right? It's insanity. I've been read in on CP cases and things like that, and that's not even like the biggest chunk of it anymore, right? And that's the crazy thing is we have to teach our kids that like literally anyone is a target of a threat actor, right? And you can't have the same conversation that we would have if we all sat in a room, right? You have to have a different kind of conversation with them, and I think that's really tough, especially if you're not exposed to the world of cybersecurity and you don't see what's happening on a regular basis. Because one of the biggest problems, and we talk about all the time, is if you're not in this line of work, you don't see it, right? Like you see the Equifax incident we were talking about this morning on the news, right? But you don't understand what happened. You see, lately there's the whole Coinbase thing and people got their Bitcoin stolen. You see that on the news, but you don't understand what really fundamentally happened was that it was a SIM swap attack and they used phone numbers from FA and all these other things, right? So having the conversation about here's what you should really think about as you become a digital citizen, right? Both in how you represent yourself to the world, but also how you prevent other people from representing you to the world.
This is huge. Okay, so this
that's
this
a great question from my boy Lamont, Trend Micro.
I'm so excited.
One thing I wanted to say before you go answer this one is, Dom, you mentioned educating kids on cybersecurity. Think of it as real life versus in the internet world, right? In real life with your kid, it's, hey, you don't know this person, you've never seen them before, you don't recognize them. This is not something you want to be a part of. When you have social engineering, it is, hey, that's grandma's picture, or hey, that's grandma's email address. Like, I trust this person. And there's this kind of a very difficult realm that you have to navigate with your kids where it's like, that may not be grandma.
You know what I did is I had that conversation because my 11-year-old, he was still 10 at the time, but he got really pissed at me. I mean, because he was playing Roblox with this, internet personality for a while. And then they asked something like, what state do you live in? Right. Which is an instant like, nope. He came to me, but I immediately blocked the person for him. He was mad. It's like, I've been playing with it, blah, blah. So I did something interesting, and he's suddenly into Harry Potter. Right. So we watched the scene on Transfiguration, when she turns into a cat or whatever she does. I was like, that you can literally do that on the internet. Like I could start a Facebook account, take a picture of you, stick it on there, and write your name, and now I'm you. Right? People, for all intents and purposes, the broad portion of the public will assume that I'm you. And then I just start talking shit. Right? And that's the reality of like online identity. But it's
But it doesn't have to be that. I mean, I think one of the things that Ryan just said that comes back to me is, there's a stranger on the street. If this weird guy with a beard and cross eyes walks up to you and you don't know him, he starts talking to you, I want you to at least take it with some degree of no trust, right? Like that's just a built-in human trait. Yet we get to just take away the abstract of that when we go in the internet world, right? Like in the sense that if I wanted to be grandma, back to your point, Dom, and I wanted to kidnap this person, I don't need to track them down on the street. I can find my victim through just Facebook profiles and pictures, and then find tangential aspects to that and find grandma. And as soon as I simulate being grandma, if I just pretend to be grandma, I have a thing that I do in teaching called When Grandma Ain't Grandma, right? And I pretend to be grandma. I ask for your address because I want to send you a present to make up for Christmas. I didn't get what I wanted to you. I can go get you right now. I can bring this to a point where I can break those walls. And I think the point is that I think we have to, as parents, and I really want to touch into Lamont's question because it's brilliant. As parents, I think we have to find ways to at least help educate that you should take everything with some degree of suspicion on the internet, whether it's Roblox, whether it's this game, and you should ask. And if you don't know, you should ask me. And if I don't know, we should have paths to answer it, which brings me straight into Lamont's question. I do think that we have performed over life, over history of the United States, the ability to educate by bringing our teachers and our pedagogical life into solving this problem. And I think it starts with teaching the teachers. I think it starts with giving educational empowerment capabilities to the teachers. And I put my money where my mouth is. PAX 8 had me go and speak for, I think it was 40 or 50, I guess maybe it was 85 at the end, but it was supposed to be 40 or 50 eighth graders. And all of these kids came in and we talked about these things. The schools probably should hold some responsibility here, because I don't think trying to direct hundreds of thousands of different parent types and their world and what they understand about technology or don't in this nascent world of being able to do it. But I do expect us to be able to work through our pedagogical systems as teachers and educate these things at the school level and provide resources just like a counselor would be.
And like you went to speak, right? Like you're a known figure with experience, and it doesn't need to be a social personality, but like damn, reach out to the community, right? Find a local cybersecurity firm or something.
Yeah,
and say,
MSPs
hey,
are
we really
willing
want
to
you
do
to come
that
in and
for free,
talk to our
probably.
kids.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And share some knowledge. And I think that's huge. And really, there's a lot more than security when we're talking to kids about being digital citizens. So you could make a whole class out of this. You could make a 7th grade course that is, here's how you act on the internet, right? And obviously part of it's security and part of it's like, don't type show bombs in the chat section. Like, and bullying and everything
yeah,
else.
thanks, chat bot person. Yeah, thanks that popped in as we speak. But yeah, that's good.
Well, and I think so. There's a comment that was made on LinkedIn that said, "Grandma isn't going to ask you for your credit card. Sometimes common sense is the best lesson to teach." I think this is super, super important and should not be overlooked. And that is this, right? Is that we as adults, like our knee-jerk reaction for our kids is, for the love of God, would you think? I mean, does this make sense to you? The reality is, yes.
It does.
It does make
It's
sense.
designed to make sense.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Is that we forget how stupid we were as kids, and it's because the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, it controls several things. For one, it's not fully developed until you're 25 years old. It controls things like critical thinking and logic and common sense. It also magically controls things like dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. And so it's what I call the 3 deadly sins of dopamine, right? Which is lust, greed, and envy. So we envy all of our friends that are getting all this exposure and all these likes and all this stuff on Instagram and everywhere else. We lust after that, and we want the greed of saying, I want the most likes, I want the most followers, I want all of these things. And security always takes a back seat to that type of thinking. So explaining the ones and zeros and all those things isn't going to have as much impact on our kids. Security at its basic layer, it's, for one, it's never a picture, it's a puzzle, right? And every little piece of the puzzle starts to paint the picture that you need. Dom, as you said, hey, what state do you live in? Oh, that's pretty innocuous. Of course I'll tell them that I live in Colorado. No, you won't, because that's one piece to the puzzle. And security is not about ones and zeros. Psychology and marketing, I get this question a lot. It's like, how'd you come from a security background and now you do all this digital marketing stuff? They're both the same. It's not about ones and zeros. That's all reactive security stance. That's not proactive. Proactive is figuring out what people do and why they do it. What's the human psychology behind why people do really stupid stuff? And that is the foundation for social engineering, right? We all want to believe that the world is the best place and all that, and we don't want our kids to stop believing that. I mean, I don't want my kid to be, a pessimistic jerk, but at the same time, I don't want him to go out hugging everybody and going, everything in the world's great. And for the large part, he doesn't, but he has at some points in his life.
I'm going to go find the largest geographic area with the most density of shootings and random natures in the city. I'm going to ask my kid to go walk through the alleys. Nope, not going to do that either. I think there is some aspect of, a bit of mistrust that has to exist. And I think it's because we have these certain problems. For anybody that's not cybersecurity, I think some of the challenges are, someone said it earlier, grandma may look and sound like grandma, won't be grandma. Dom said it very well earlier about, I can easily quickly become my transmogrification on the internets and the inner tubes and become something. There is nothing around identity-centric models for internet. It was meant to be this very open protocol tied to just IP addresses. There is no registration, but some countries have a requirement to have an email address. You must have a registered driver's license on file. We must have your socials. So there are people trying to solve this. But the point I'm trying to bring is that there is always stranger danger, as Sarah says, or Melanie says. There's always stranger danger here right now because you can be anybody. You can fake things. You can spoof it. You can pretend. There's no barrier to entry to that. There's no license. There's no core identity tied to it. And so when you think that way, it makes social engineering and manipulation very easy. Right. And so the core problem exists that there is no core one-to-one identity of the human body, just like there would be walking down the street. I have some forensic evidence that Ryan Cromar is the guy snatching up kids on the street. Right. I have something that can tie back. Those forensic evidences are harder to read, harder to find, and then even worse, harder to prove in front of jurors. Because if you think you don't understand it, imagine being called in to be a juror in a case where this evidence now becomes something paramount to proving. Like, this gets really rough in where we sit in the United States. You have to have some fair degree of mistrust.
Right? Like, I can if I'm in a prosecution or if I'm a defense attorney, I can manipulate it through jury selection and be like, oh, you're CISSP, we don't like that guy.
Yeah, we don't want Matt on there at all. Let's not have you be part of this in any way.
Well, you got 3 to 5 eliminations and you can get the people out of there that you want, and I think there's this mindset of, but why would they hack me? I don't know. Why do people put together puzzles? I think it's the dumbest waste of time on the face of the earth. But billions and billions of puzzles are sold every single year. And the reason I know billions, and it's literally like 13.6 billion puzzles are sold a year. And the reason I know that is because it's one Google away. And that's exactly the point, is that you no longer have to be a security practitioner. I'm a 1 hour YouTube video away from learning how to socially engineer somebody, how to use an API endpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super easy, right? It's like, this was 2009 or 10. I spoke to, I think it was the Lions Club or something like that. And we were talking about this exact topic. And I went out and I did a search, did an advanced search on Twitter, found a girl that had said on Twitter, my parents don't get home until 5 o'clock. I'm starving and I'm bored. And I brought that tweet up. And I grabbed the API and I went, and this is before they obfuscated Lat Lawn, found her Lat Lawn, found out roughly where she was at, went to the county assessor site, did this all live in front of everybody, went to the county's assessor site, looked up all the houses on that street and looked for that last name because she's using her real name on Twitter, looked up her last name, found out exactly what her address was, and then looked up both of her parents. And within about 10 minutes, I said, I know that I have a 14-year-old girl that is now home alone. Her parents are both at work. I know where they work and how far from home they are.
And when they get
I know
back.
her address,
so I know how long
and what her house looks like, and I know what time they get back. And I was like, and that took me 10 minutes to do. And of course, all these old dudes were just like, their jaw was open and they were like, holy crap. And I was like, I'm no computer programmer. I was like, you can go learn how to use the Twitter API endpoint in 30 minutes on a YouTube video. This is super easy stuff to do. And unfortunately, shitty people exist. This is the reality we live in. And you have to learn how to deal with that.
That's
as you
part
said,
of teaching
Matt, right?
kids
It's like,
too, is right. It's the same stranger danger conversation of, hey, there's people that suck. Like, and there always has been, and there always will. There's tigers that suck too, right? Like
you're just a lot closer to them now.
Right.
You're a digit away, right? I think that's the difference, that you don't have this density of bad humans in my city. We have a density of bad humans that can intersperse to any geolocation, to any person on any chat, on any. I think that's the difference, that you only need one with really long arms. If you took this back to espionage, right? Now China doesn't have to send a body here to steal data. They just get a professor in Chicago to be, right? Like, you start getting into this closeness and proximity, right? In this point, I think that's the point people miss, is that why me? As Miguel says so awesomely, right?
Yeah.
It's just because I happened to shoot my rifle and that's where it hit. I mean, that's the LA shooting, if you think about, or I'm sorry, you guys name one, but you know what I mean. In sense of
it's interesting though. We're talking about educating kids here, but you look at the comment section, it's educating adults as well, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen my mother do the favorite car or favorite color.
I just need to buy 50 Apple gift cards and I'm good. Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, you have no clue. And it's almost like you have this younger generation, this mid generation who gets it, and then this older generation who's like, what exactly is this? I'm just going to click on it because, to your point, there's no way a bad person's going to come after me. Why would they do this to me?
Oh, Lamont, I don't hate plugs on here, but it looks like that there are companies, I won't say it's just one, but there's a lot of companies that are putting out resources. I'll name another just to be fair, right? Wiser does a free training for your home people for free. I've participated in a couple of his little vignettes. They're fun. But I think the point that Ryan just made is, parents, educate yourselves, right? You want to know how to talk to your kids? Understand the material.
Well, and the reality is your kids are going to know more about this technology than 99% of you do as parents. It's just the world that they live in that you don't live in, right? It's like when they spend 2 weeks on Christmas break, all you're thinking is shifting into neutral and laying back with a beer and going, oh, I don't want to think about work for 2 weeks. They're thinking about all the stuff they can do online, right? Your kids are like, they're going to spend 12 to 15 hours a day online if you let them do that. And so it's not only educating yourself, but like walking them through the process, right? Of like, they don't have critical thinking skills, but if you're like, okay, let's walk this through, right? You've got a ladder, it's sitting in the yard, it's up against the house, and the grass is wet, and you climb up the ladder. The base of the ladder might slip. They're like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think about the base of the ladder slipping. Did you think about the 9 things that happen after the base of the ladder slips? What's below you? What are you going to land on? How's
the missing teeth?
What happens when you land on your back? Where do you hit your head at? Like a million different things that happen. Like, how long are you going to be in the ICU? Like, all these things. Like, how does that impact my family? Like, those critical thinking skills are things that we just don't develop till we're like older, right? And then we're like, oh yeah, I see all the bad things around me. As a kid, you're just like, I'm climbing that ladder because that looks dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. this is a
vacation
nuanced
thing is great
conversation for
too.
sure.
I
Yes.
love
That's
the
another
vacation
great
piece.
attack vector, right? Of
Yeah.
saying, hey, I'm going to so and so 1,200 miles away.
And some of these things can be simply having really good privacy postures on things, right? Every
Yeah.
day now you're starting to see your Apple phone ask you about this app. Do you want it to track you? The answer should probably be no. It should just be
Right.
The answer is always
Right.
right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is why I say educate yourself, right? If you don't know these things and find these very pragmatic little pieces, because we could sit here and talk about attack vectors for literally the rest of the day and come up with new and unique methodologies that you can be attacked. And I think the histrionics of that, shouldn't continue. But I think the point is that educate that in general, these things that we thought were just free is when you're getting a free resource like Facebook, you are the resource, you are the commodity, you are those things. And we really have that educational aspect of you really need to start. Great point. Somebody tied this in perfectly. There's a fine line between cybersecurity and privacy,
Right.
especially for kids. Yeah, 100%. Privacy as it relates to the internet is probably more valuable than the direct cybersecurity impacts, right? Those have very less blast radius to the human life. You lose the account,
Right.
you lose the money. But learning the privacy of where you are, the things I'm going to need to manipulate you, the things I'm going to need because I know you have a tangential
like
access to
Instagram,
Eric Bowles.
like
Yeah.
that, and I forget that the term, the location data in your photo is there by default. Like it is part of when you take a photo with your phone. In argumentative terminology, to embed your location with whatever they call it.
Right, the metadata.
Right, it's in your lat longs in there, and then you post that, right? And if that
Yeah.
application doesn't strip it out, and I think to this day Instagram doesn't, like you
That's
took
right.
that picture on a beach within this 10-meter circle, like
Yeah.
which is any house, most houses, right? Like
the
Right.
exit
Well-
information on photos, right? Yeah, like that. Kind
exit.
of,
Thank you. That's it.
As
Yeah.
as Matthew put in the comments, right? It's like you go on vacation and you're like, here we all are, in Amsterdam, whatever, blah blah blah, and everybody's like, bro, they're a 14-hour plane ride away.
and it's 3 weeks after your new post that says, "Hey, and here's my new house on 1002 74th Street," right? Like you
Right.
now have just posted this,
closed
like,
on my
here's the
house,
place,
and
and here's where
yeah.
I'm out of, right? Like, so we don't post those things.
Yeah.
My wife and I didn't post those things. My kids cannot post those things, and that's
No.
because I have this very stringent aspect of privacy first, and then the other things need to be in the layers of cybersecurity. So I'm so glad this was such a brilliant point out that someone made. I don't have the name on this one, but yeah,
Take
good
all the
stuff.
photos you want and post them privately, not publicly, when you get back.
Right.
And look at the OPSEC of them and see what things are in the background. Like that's layer 2, right? Is now you have to teach, okay, not only that, but when I take this picture, did I happen to get the one thing that's going to execute me in the picture? Did I happen to get that
You know
piece
what's
of
crazy
information?
is at some of our virtual events at PAX 8, we do a whole, hey, post a picture of your battle station. Well, after one of those
Right.
events, I went through them. I saw a full 1040 social address, AGI,
Beautiful.
all that crap.
And now your reward says OPSEC, please, first, right? Like I've seen your new charges.
and we
But
made that modification.
they got the PAX 8 hoodie, man. That's all that matters.
I know,
Yeah.
I know that PAX 8 hoodie and that stolen identity, and kids are gonna do that, right? Kids aren't gonna like take a selfie and then look at the background, right? It's the classic joke that I've only seen it of adults, thankfully, but is you take a selfie in the bathroom and you're not wearing pants, and you don't realize that the mirror's back there, right? It's the same thing, except we're talking about tax returns or whatever you've got up on screen. Or something in your room, right? Like your report card, like whatever it is. And it's so much to think about, and it's really tough to distill it down for kids, right? There's a whole level of complexity that you have to take out for them because frankly, they don't care, right? They're gonna get bored and they're not gonna listen to me. And I've taken the approach of like, I've been fairly blunt about it. Like with the whole Roblox user incident, I was like, that person can literally steal you. Right, like if I was totally blunt about it, that's not the right approach for everyone, but like that person can figure out where you are, figure out your schedule, figure out my schedule, and come take you, right? And it's the same shit as stranger danger, right? It's no different than somebody sitting out front in your house in a black Suburban just measuring your activities, right? And it's the same reason why if I see an unfamiliar car sitting in front of my house with someone in it for an hour, I'm going to go talk to them and figure out who the hell they are. Right.
I'm going to go take a
But
picture
you
of their
can't see
license
it on
plate
the
first
internet.
and then talk to them.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I'd
I
Actually,
think
the
walk by
exit
their
data
car and
is
put
in
on
that one.
videotape.
Yeah.
Well, I think the illustrative point is that the attacks are so many and varied. The reasons are so many and varied. The ways you
Right.
might come across, like it's just massive, right? And so I would just say teaching the thought process about changing habits, as Miguel says, right? Like you really should have the understanding of trying to look at not exposing things that you don't have to, trying to be operationally aware. But it all, if we
Right.
distill that back down to how do you have the classic password on the
Yes,
post, right?
exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
But as you think about this, though, we have to raise the tide and raise the educational barrier in the United States for parents alike. And so my charge to everybody, here is to give people just a couple of prescriptive things that people can take away from this, because we're at the end of the wrap up. And so I'd like to just give everybody a chance to give 2 or 3 things that parents could do right now without learning anything else, without gaining anything else, that they could teach their kids to help them understand something that could help protect and raise the tide for them. So let's start with who? Who wants to go first, guys?
I'll start. How about that?
Let's do it.
Because I'll
Let's do
have the
it.
least technical answer. And really it's just have the conversation with your kids. Have the conversation that this can happen and talk about the realities of what's going on. I think if you sugarcoat things, they just don't fully understand exactly what the ramifications are. And Matt, you said it perfectly yourself. Even having direct conversations didn't solve the problem, right? So it's a consistent conversation and it's a growing conversation. And it's just the fact that you as a parent should probably have that talk. I joke with my wife. I was like, this is kind of like having the birds and the bees talk with your kid, but it's like the bits and the bytes. Like this is what you do instead, right?
I like that.
And it's super
I'm gonna
important.
keep that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Birds and the bees, the bits,
Bits
and the bites.
I love
Bits
it.
and the bites.
You need to go put a trademark on that or whatever it is for those type of statements, man. Like that's good stuff. No, I tease. I'll kind of go really quickly second on this. I think the takeaway that I would give is to all your social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, go through them with your kids and set the most stringent privacy policies.
Yes.
And they have them. They have guidances, right? They'll tell you, hey, very much, this is what it does. And just read through them. Make it a daily project. Spend 20 minutes a day going through all of those. And then I think you should monitor the outcome of that, right? Did the kids change everything? Was everything? Because if they're only sharing it to their friends, I now have a much narrower attack vector than if I'm sharing it publicly. And so if you're unable to train the behavior delineation, at least kind of contain the blast radius. I have this term I live by called live compromised. I live like they're going to compromise. I live like they're going to attack me. I live like they're going to look at me. And I try to make it so that the blast radius of any one compromise is reduced. Now, I probably suck at it, and I think people will laugh at me, and some threat actor is probably going to win. But the point is that you just need to go in and reduce the actual privacy envelope. So look at your Apple phones, look at your Google phones, and look at your online accounts, and just make it a task to go through them and reduce the privacy settings to the most stringent settings. So that'd be my takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go ahead, Tom. I think it's we tend to focus on my son or my daughter knows more about computers than I do. They know more about the internet. They know more about tech. They know more about all this stuff. It's not about the what. It's about the why.
Yep.
That's
comma
really,
space. Therefore, they're safer. Doesn't apply, right?
That's the conversation. Is starting to train them to think in an analytical and critical way, right? Not just about this, but about everything else. I mean, they don't know more about your stovetop than you do, but you're going to quickly train them as to why touching the top of the stove is a really stupid idea. It's not that 3 second of burn. It's the 3 hours of ice cubes afterwards, and the scabs on your fingertips, and the inability to run your iPhone for 2 weeks. All of those things, you're teaching them to think this thing through, right? And they're like, yeah, that thing sucked. I'm not going to do that again. This is no different. It doesn't matter if you understand it or not. The conversation around why is somebody asking, how could somebody use this, what could somebody do with this, all of those things. That's the bigger, broader conversation. Because when you understand that piece and you approach it from that analytical, critical piece, that's where you start to back up and go, I'm going to now put this picture frame around everything. This is the lens that I view everything throughout my life. Whether it's sitting with your back to a door in a restaurant, something I will never ever do.
Same.
Stuff
Me either,
like that.
Nor myself. Yeah, same concept. Yeah.
I'll leave you with like 3 fundamentals that I sort of operate on. And the first one is transparency. Like if I do feel the need to take some sort of action, I explain it very clearly in age appropriate terms, like why. like my example of that person could steal you, right? Or this, that, or the other. They could steal my information, whatever. Explain it to them so that they understand, right? Because real world examples set in for a human way better than hypotheticals, right? It's why I feel like I've gained so much more in the real world than college. It's the same concept because I live it. The second one is, as I call it, trust but verify. What I mean by that is my different age groups of kids have different abilities, right? Like my second youngest can't just browse the internet, right? He's got an Amazon tablet with his games on it. And then as they age up, like my oldest, he has a Surface Go. It's got full-blown Windows, but it's got Microsoft Family on it. And he can't go to, websites that young adolescent boys tend to go to, but he can do pretty much anything else, right? And I just monitor that, and I monitor what he's communicating through and who he's communicating with and what he's saying, and then we can have those conversations, right? And he starts to understand why I'm having that conversation.
Oh, Felipe's here. Awesome.
I
would
say
some of the challenges you have is that most parents probably can't implement those processes. They don't exist, and the packages are out there are harder
I would argue
to find.
against that though, because there's probably some education. Like there's probably an opportunity for us to make a technical tidbits.
Oh, let's do it.
Video.
Let's
we should do that.
How to protect their home networks,
but
right?
simple things like check your browsing history. Like we have Microsoft Family set up. He can't delete his browsing history. It won't let him.
But just that comma statement, though, Dom,
exactly
is the barrier to entry, right? Like
maybe
that's
we
the
need
point
to teach
that I think we need to teach. Yeah,
but just like, hey, I know he's on Roblox, right? I can get into Roblox and find the chat and just see who he's been talking to, right? And I see the million spam links he gets, and he doesn't click them. I'm pretty proud of that. But just understanding, like, and having open conversations about how do you communicate with people, right? And he'll tell me, like, yeah, I use Roblox and I chat with people, and that's it. And he's not on any social media yet. I won't let him on any social media yet. And it's having that age appropriate control, but also trust. Like he's more confident of a digital citizen, I feel like, because I do trust him to make smart decisions because he's earned it, right? And he could very easily unearn it.
In the chat.
And I will take all the Robux. Just send me the link. I'll drop
just send me the link. I'm in.
Now.
I also want to do a little bit of fanboyism here. So Felipe Perez writes a lot of really technical red team type education, makes a lot of educational. He's a big public speaker, fantastic resource, and just awesome to have you stop by. Thank you so much, Felipe. Philippi? I'm terrible. Maybe correct me down the road when we meet in person. Yeah. But yeah, I think the point though is that we should start having these educational moments for parents. I think if I left one more takeaway, it really is go educate, go watch YouTube, go listen to the voices that are out there, right? And I think that if you start doing that, you'll start having a lot more ability to connect with your kids around technology and also have those conversations that are crucial. And, Dom's talking about a world where, like what I live with, my kids have internet time zones, they go to sleep, they have certain access, they have certain things. But even that is, a game against kids that have better technology skills than most parents, right? When I was writing filters in schools, they would come up with new ways to search and new ways to get around those filters, right? Like, yeah, it does. Google Quick was a very hard protocol to overcome when it first came out, right? From a searching perspective. But short story.
Matt, you brought up a very, very good point. That is take an interest in what your kids are doing. You don't necessarily have to understand it. Take an interest in what they're doing, and the benefit there is that they will be more open with you, because right now what they look at you as is they're like, look, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, and you're not smart enough to understand what I'm doing right now. So as you take a genuine interest, not a fake interest, but a real interest in what they're doing, they'll be more open with you because they'll feel like they have an interest in this. Hey, Dad, did you hear about this that's going on with NFTs and with Solana and this and that? And they start to include you in those conversations, and you're like, ding, 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 ding. You're like bells start to go off, because they're being more transparent and verbose with you, and that's where you start to abate them.
Well, you can figure it out later. Like if you're having a conversation with your kid and something just doesn't make sense to you, when they go to bed, Google it. Like like what is Snapchat? Like if I ever catch my kids on Snapchat, I swear. But anyways, like if it's something you're unfamiliar with that rubs you the wrong way, research it, right, and figure out, because it could be nothing. But it could be something, and then decide what action you take, right? But I consider myself pretty tech savvy, and I've definitely run into things. I'm like, what in the hell is that, right? Like,
me too.
I just started understanding NFTs probably a week or two ago, right? Like I took some time during vacation to really read into them. So like I didn't really understand them until now. And if you don't understand it, that's fine. And reach out to resources.
and learn to understand that, because so my son and I both have been pretty about waist deep in the NFT and crypto space for well over a year now. I hold a handful of NFTs and a bunch of different crypto and all those kinds of things. And this is what kids are looking at. This is the next sneaker that people are trading back and forth, is these NFTs. And it's super, super easy for them to, I had a friend recently just reach out to me and he's like, hey, my kid, like back in April, got in on some stupid early thing and he claims he's a millionaire and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, something called like a board monkey. And I was like, Board Ape Yacht Club. He probably is a millionaire on paper. And he's like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, no, it's true. He probably is. If he owns, depending on which one he owns, he's worth at least $250,000. And turns out he owns
wait till that's your tax burden, right? Wait till that's your tax burden too. You now start seeing governments on
brace yourself.
You're like, here's your $2 million tax bill for that.
I love that. As a parent, you think you're having the security conversation. Instead, your kid's like, no, I'm paying off your mortgage, mom and dad. And if you could just get a CPA to help
if you could pay the capital gains on that, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Yeah. It's short term, by the way. I traded it in and out 97 times over the last 4 weeks. I just want to
That's right.
Oh God. Anyways, that's a delvance that we don't need to get into. I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. We're certainly close to time. The comments have been amazing. The chat's been fantastic. Some awesome people. Jason Phelps here. Sarah Pletcher, a good friend of mine. A lot of awesome people stopping in. So thank you so much. Dominicus Wells also for popping in. So I'm good.
That's my boy.
I just
That's
want to
the
tell
other
you guys.
PAX 8 Dom right there.
Yeah, Dom, you want us wrap us
I think
up,
I'm
buddy?
the other Dom though, because I was the second one. Credit where
You're
credit's
Dom
due.
too. Yeah,
I'm
Dom too.
Seriously, thanks everyone for coming in. And I think we came up with a good idea here of just maybe putting together some content on simple technical tips if you want to go look at history or whatever. So if there's something that you guys really want to learn, let us know. We'll see if we can make some content around it. If there's something that you don't understand, let us know. We want to help. We want to raise tides in business cyber, but we want to raise tides for everyone. So if there's something you want to learn, drop it in comments, reach out to us in DMs, whatever. There's no need to be embarrassed. But we'll make content as we can to start teaching everyone the technical side of being able to understand some of this stuff. So thanks for coming. Eric, thanks so much for joining us on your first stream with us.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Cromar, thanks as always. But from the chicken wing connoisseur to the Halo connoisseur, just connoisseur of all the things.
He loves patina as well, from what I understood.
I was going to say I'm a connoisseur of many things. Halo is definitely one of them. Hit me up on Steam, Coop de Gracie. Let's play some Halo together.
That's awesome. I'm going to cut you in the back of the head with a sword.
I'm going to use the needler personally.
That's new.
Perfect.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
You guys, thank you. Appreciate it.